So here's the chair that we're going to cover. First we're going to work with the back of the chair, and we're making a pattern piece for half of it. So first we need to measure the chair, divide those measurements by 2, transfer those to a piece of paper, and then down this side add 3.5 centimetres, around the other 2 edges 1.5 centimetres, and along the bottom for the hem 3. Now we're going to work with the side of the chair. Measure the chair, check that these 2 measurements are the same, transfer your measurements to paper, and then on these sides add 1.5 centimetres and again 3 centimetres for the hem. Now with the front of the chair, again we're only making a half piece, so take the chair's measurements, divide them into half, again check that these 2 measurements are the same, then transfer it to a piece of paper. Around these edges add 1.5 centimetres, again 3 centimetres for the hem. Along this side we don't add anything, we're going to cut this on the fold. Now take the 3 pieces that you've created and use them to cut out 5 pieces of fabric. Starting with the 2 pieces that make the back, we're going to work with the centre edge, which is the straight line. So we're going to do the same thing to both pieces. We're basically going to fold over 1 centimetre and then 1 centimetre again and iron it down. Okay, repeat with the other side down the straight edge and then stitch them down into a hem. So that's both hems stitched down. Now decide which side of the back you want to overlap, so I'm going to go for that as being my top side because it's got more pattern on it. So for the time being I can take the underside away. Now we're going to stitch buttonholes along here, so I'm going to do 8 buttons on my chair. So I need to spread these out evenly, accounting for the 1.5 that we've got for the seam allowance on the top and the 3 that we've got for the hem allowance. So between those 2 points, measure out a mark where you're going to have your buttonholes evenly spaced. So here I've got a pin at every point I want to stitch a buttonhole, so I'm going to go and use the machine now to make the buttonholes. And I'm going to start the buttonholes exactly from the stitching and beyond. Right, I've stitched my buttonholes. This is how to open them. You take a pin and pin it across the end of the buttonhole. This is going to act as a barrier. Then you just take your seam ripper, tuck it in there, just go till you hit the pin, and there your buttonhole's open. So now repeat that with all your buttonholes. Bring the 2 sides of your pattern together, and these need to overlap by precisely 3 centimetres. So take your tape measure and check the overlap is exact and pin. Now that you've got your pieces pinned together, you can use this as a guide now to stitch your buttons in, so you know when you're buttoned up you're going to be exactly where you need to be. So starting from the bottom, if you take your pin, your needle sorry, and poke it straight through there, right up to the edge of the buttonhole, that's going to be the equivalent of this hole of your button. So once you've got that going through, you can take away that pin. Let's keep it neat. So that's now going to hold your buttonhole exactly where you want it. Now repeat that with all your other buttons. So here we have all the buttons sewn in. Don't remove the pin that you've got right at the top. We're going to stitch across here and keep this nice and secure, about 1 centimetre from the edge. It doesn't hurt as well to do a little bit of an extra stitch down this seam just to hold this tight here, so that all the pressure is not just in the seam that we stitch across in the end. I can stitch a little down there and then across there. So I don't know if that shows, but we've stitched it closed here, stitched all across there and just up to there, so that now gives a little hold there. So that's the back piece already. Now for a tricky bit. This is the long panel that runs right down the front of the chair, and we're going to attach the side panel, one of those, to it. So this edge right from this corner, from here right the way down the skinny piece, across the seat and down the front of the chair to this corner, is going to attach all the way up one side of the chair. So the bottom corner is going to go here, this is going to swivel attached to there, and then swivel again and run up there, and those two corners are going to meet there. It's just a case of pinning and manoeuvring. This little dip, at least on my chair, is roughly going to match here, because that's the line between the seat and the back of the chair. So here we go. So one side pinned in, I'm going to stitch that 1.5 centimetres from the edge as we allowed in the pattern. That's the seam stitched on, so now we're going to iron it flat, so it means clipping a few corners like this, so that they'll lay flat when we iron it. Some on the inside, some on the outside. Get an idea now what we're gonna end up with. So now the same with the other side piece on the other side. Pin and stitch and clip and iron. That's the two side pieces now on, stitched and ironed. Now we need to attach the back panel into this space. So we need to begin by matching up the top corners should then fit in across there if we've done all our measurements correct. It's going to need a little bit of easing as we stitch it. And then hopefully also these two measurements are correct, and we just pin the whole way down, and then we're just going to stitch, clip and iron as we did before. So that's the back stitched in and already. I've tried it on the chair and it fits nicely, so all that's left now is to roll up the 3 cm hem, which is just the standard hem. And a little thing you need to make sure is that your 2 openings, even though look, the hem's not the same depth, this edge must line up. So yeah, do this all the way around, stitch it, and you're ready to put it on your chair.